If there was one thing I held on to after the divorce, it was the promise. Madison's future would be secure. Alan and I had been married for 12 years. We weren't high school sweethearts, but we were college comrades, drawn together by ambition and the foolish belief that hard work always translated to reward. By the time Madison was born, we had already started planning for her education. We weren't wealthy, but we were determined. Her college fund comes first, I remember saying during the divorce mediation, no matter what happens between us. Alan had nodded, fingers steepled like he was already calculating spreadsheets in his head. Of course, he said. We'll split contributions, 50-50, non-negotiable. The judge made it official. It was written into our divorce decree. Every month, I would deposit a portion of my paycheck into the fund, and Alan would match it. Simple, ironclad. Or so I thought. Years passed. Madison flourished. Bright, determined, compassionate. While some teenagers burned out trying to prove themselves, Madison seemed fueled by her dreams. She didn't party, didn't rebel. She stayed up late studying, picked up side gigs tutoring younger kids, and volunteered at the community library every Saturday. I want to go to Columbia, she told me one evening over dinner, her voice filled with that gleaming certainty only the young can truly own. I'd smiled, even as my chest tightened. Columbia wasn't just prestigious, it was expensive. But I told her the truth. If you get in, I said, we'll make it work. She did everything to earn her place. Straight A's, AP classes, debate team, volunteer work. A scholarship or two, sure, but nothing close to a full ride. And when that white envelope from Columbia arrived in the mailbox, I could hardly breathe. She tore it open on the front porch. Mom, I got in! Her face glowed like sunrise. I'm going to Columbia! I burst into tears. I'm so proud of you, honey. In that moment, everything felt worth it. The long nights grading papers, the side jobs I'd picked up cleaning vacation rentals, the corners we'd cut on food and clothes. Her future was real. It was happening. But reality, as always, had its own story to tell. 3 nights later, we sat at the kitchen table, filling out the financial documents. Madison scrolled through the Columbia portal while I opened the college fund account on my laptop. I was ready to breathe a sigh of relief. Until I saw the number. $312.57, I said aloud. Madison paused. Wait, what? I refreshed the screen. Again. And again. $312. It should have been over $80,000. At first, I thought it was a mistake. A glitch. Maybe I logged into the wrong account. But I checked the transaction history and my stomach dropped. Dozens of withdrawals, all within the last 2 years. Some small, some massive. All tagged with Alan's name. He took it, I whispered. He took everything. Madison stared at me, confused. What do you mean? I turned the screen toward her. Your father emptied your college fund. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. She read the screen like it might change. But it didn't. I grabbed my phone, fingers trembling, and called Alan. He answered on the third ring with a casual, "Hey!" I didn't bother with pleasantries. You emptied Madison's college fund? There was a pause, then a sigh. Clara, look, things have been rough with work. My business lost major clients. I had to... You were court-ordered to contribute. That was her future. My voice cracked with fury. It wasn't like I was gambling, he replied defensively. I needed it to keep afloat. And she'll get loans or scholarships. She's smart. She'll figure it out. Unbelievable, I said. You stole from your own daughter. I'll pay it back someday. I hung up before I screamed. Madison sat silently, eyes glassy. So there's nothing? I crouched beside her. We'll find another way, I promise you. She nodded slowly, but her expression was no longer just sad. It had shifted into something harder, steelier. He's going to regret this, she whispered. And I believed her. Madison didn't cry that night. not even when I expected her to. She simply closed her laptop, got up from the kitchen table, and went to her room. I listened at her door for over an hour, waiting for the sobs, the muffled heartbreak. But all I heard was silence, the kind that feels thick with thoughts too heavy to carry aloud. The next morning, she came downstairs, already dressed, eyes focused. "Can we talk?" I asked gently, motioning to the kitchen table. She didn't sit. She stood, arms folded, voice calm but clipped. "I'm not going to beg him for money. I want you to know that." "You shouldn't have to beg anyone," I said. "He was supposed to—" "I know," she cut in, "but I'm not wasting time trying to make him do the right thing. He made his choice. Now I'm making mine." "What's that?" "I'm going to figure this out myself. I'll get a job. I'll apply for every scholarship. I'll talk to the financial aid office. I'm still going to Columbia." I nodded slowly, her resolve more unshakable than I'd ever seen it. But beneath it, I could see the exhaustion starting to take root. Still, she acted fast. That very weekend, Madison applied to 17 scholarships. Academic, merit-based, needs-based, obscure grants buried in local community pages. She hunted them all like a woman on a mission. She even wrote to small family-run foundations that required handwritten essays. I proofread until my eyes blurred. "You're applying to the one for children of dairy farmers?" I asked one night. She shrugged. "Grandpa raised goats. Close enough." Every afternoon, she came home from school, grabbed a snack, and dove into applications. On weekends, she picked up shifts at a used bookstore across town. She'd bike there, work 6 hours, come home, and study. Sleep became a luxury. One night, I found her passed out on the couch, scholarship essay still open on her laptop, and a highlighter in her hand. I covered her with a blanket and kissed her forehead. "You shouldn't have to be this strong," I whispered, "but I've never been prouder." The first wave of rejection letters arrived in April. "While your application was impressive, due to a high volume of applicants, regret to inform you." She folded each letter and placed it in a shoebox marked fuel. "I'm not stopping," she said. "They're going to see me." And some did. She won a $2,000 essay competition for first-generation college students. Another $1,500 from a Rotary Club that appreciated her commitment to community service. A local veterans chapter gave her $500 after reading about her tutoring work. Still, it wasn't enough. Her total balance stood at just over $6,000. Columbia's tuition, north of $30,000 a semester. I considered cashing in my retirement. I even asked my school district about summer hours. But the truth loomed. It wasn't going to cover it. Then, something unexpected happened. One afternoon, Madison came home clutching a folded piece of paper. "What's this?" I asked. "I met with Mrs. Pearson today, my counselor." She handed me the paper. It was a recommendation letter. "To whom it may concern, Madison Emerson is the embodiment of perseverance, intellect, and resilience. She does not wait for opportunity. She creates it." In my 20 years of education, I have rarely seen a student as determined as Madison. She has suffered betrayal, but turned it into fuel. She is not just a student, she is a force of nature. Mrs. Pearson had submitted her name for the Meridian Award, a private community-funded scholarship given only to one senior per year in our county. The prize? A full ride to any accredited college. "I didn't think I'd even be considered," Madison said, eyes darting with hope she was trying to suppress. I squeezed her hand. "Whether you win it or not, you've already proven who you are." But I prayed every night that she would win. Not just for tuition, not just for Columbia, but because I wanted her to know that effort, integrity, and strength still counted in a world where promises could be broken so carelessly. 2 weeks before graduation, Mrs. Pearson called me personally. "She won, Clara," she said. "The board voted unanimously." I sat in my car outside the school, stunned. "Are you serious?" "I've never seen a student move people like Madison did." "Does she know?" "Not yet. We want to surprise her during the graduation ceremony, but we need your approval. You have it, I said, tears already forming. You absolutely have it. As I hung up, I saw Madison walking out the school doors, headphones in, hair tied in a messy bun, face flushed from the sun. My daughter, the girl with fire in her veins. She had no idea the reward waiting for her, but she was already ready to earn it. Graduation day arrived beneath a perfect June sky. Cerulean blue, not a single cloud in sight. The ceremony was held on the football field, the bleachers packed with proud parents, nervous siblings, and bored younger cousins squirming in folding chairs. I sat in the second row, heart beating faster than it had even when I'd delivered Madison. This was her day, and she had no idea how big it was going to be. I spotted Alan and his new wife 2 rows back. Ashley, a woman 10 years younger than me, who wore designer sunglasses and spent more time on Instagram than in real life. Alan looked relaxed, like a man showing up just to tick a box. I clenched my jaw. Madison had chosen not to speak to him since the day she discovered what he'd done. She hadn't even returned his texts. That morning, she told me, "He doesn't get to ruin today." He doesn't get even that much from me. When her name was called during the diploma ceremony, the applause started polite, and then grew into something bigger. Parents she'd tutored for free, teachers she'd helped organize after-school events with. Even the janitor, Mr. Reggie, stood to clap. She walked the stage with her head held high, red sash gleaming under the sun. And then came the moment. Principal Dorsey cleared her throat. "Before we conclude, we have a very special announcement." Madison, still near the podium, turned slightly. The Meridian Foundation awards a full-ride scholarship every year to one student who demonstrates not just academic excellence, but unshakable character and resilience. The crowd hushed. This year's recipient is someone who has faced setbacks that would break most adults and turned them into a driving force. She has inspired every teacher, administrator, and classmate who knows her. Dorsey turned and smiled. "Madison Emerson, please step forward." The crowd erupted. I stood, clapping, tears streaming down my face. Ashley looked confused. Alan froze in place. Madison looked stunned, one hand covering her mouth. Dorsey handed her the certificate. "You've earned every bit of this." Madison accepted the mic. I didn't even know she was going to speak. But when she did, she didn't tremble. She didn't falter. Her voice was calm. Direct. "Thank you," she said. "Not just for this award, but for seeing me." She looked out at the crowd, and then, somehow, her eyes found Alan's. There are moments in life when the people who are supposed to show up for you don't. When they take from you, betray you, dismiss your dreams as optional. Alan's posture stiffened. His smile faded. But those moments don't define us. What defines us is what we do next, whether we let that betrayal become our excuse or our fuel. She paused. "I chose fuel." The audience erupted again, cheering, whistling, some even wiping tears. Madison turned, returned the mic, and walked off the stage with the grace of someone far older than 18. After the ceremony, families gathered for photos and balloons and all the awkward hugs of a community in celebration. I stood by the bleachers, holding a bouquet I couldn't afford but bought anyway. Alan approached us, his smile strained. "She did well," he said. "I didn't know about the scholarship." "Of course you didn't," I said flatly. "I wanted to talk to her, clear the air." Madison appeared beside me, arms folded. "Don't. Sweetheart, you don't get to call me that anymore." Alan flinched like she'd struck him. "I made a mistake." "You made dozens," she replied. "And the worst wasn't taking the money. It was thinking I couldn't do it without you." Silence fell between them. "I don't hate you," she added, "but I also don't owe you anything." Alan opened his mouth, then closed it. Ashley tugged at his elbow. "Let's just go, Alan." He left without another word. That night, Madison and I sat on the roof outside her bedroom window, feet dangling, breeze soft and warm. "You were incredible today," I said. She didn't smile, not right away. "I didn't want revenge," she said. "I just wanted to win on my own terms." "You did." She looked out at the stars. "Mom?" "Yeah?" "Thank you for believing in me when it felt like nobody else did." I reached over, took her hand. "You made it easy." She finally smiled. "He really didn't see that speech coming, did he?" I laughed. "Not even a little." We watched the night in silence for a while. She had a plane ticket to New York in August, a new chapter waiting to be written. But in that moment, all that mattered was that she had proven something no one could take away. She wasn't just her father's daughter. She was her own force. Columbia in the fall was something out of a film. Leaves in shades of rust and gold drifting through the air like confetti. Students with scarves wrapped around their necks, rushing between massive stone buildings, and the ever-present hum of ambition floating on every breeze. Madison fit right in. She chose a modest dorm, shared with two other girls from public schools like hers, one from Detroit, the other from Fresno. They became fast friends, bound by hustle, late-night ramen, and their shared understanding of what it meant to work for every inch they gained. She didn't tell many people about her past. In fact, she introduced herself simply as Maddie. The name felt lighter, less attached to pain. A name she chose. Her professors knew her as sharp, outspoken, and driven. Her classmates knew her as generous with her notes, but ruthless in class debates. She called me once a week, usually Sunday nights. "How's the cafeteria?" I'd ask. "Tragic," she'd say. "But they've got free apples. I take 3. Grades? Solid. Are you sleeping?" Define sleep. We laughed. We always laughed. Still, there were hard moments. Like when her roommate's father wired $5,000 for new textbooks and a winter coat, and Maddie had to compare Amazon prices and check local thrift shops. Or when she worked tutoring hours in the evenings, while everyone else went out for pizza or parties. But she never complained. Not once. Instead, she channeled her frustration into ambition. She joined the student council, ran study groups. By sophomore year, she was interning with a nonprofit that helped underrepresented teens apply to Ivy League schools. "They remind me of me," she told me, "except maybe a little less angry." Meanwhile, Alan had all but vanished. He sent one check, a paltry $500 scribbled with "congratulations" during her freshman year. Maddie tore it up and mailed it back. After that, nothing, not even a birthday card. But sometimes, when she was particularly tired, or when someone else's dad showed up on campus with coffee and snacks, I'd see the sadness creep in. Not loud, not obvious. But there. "I don't need him," she'd say on those days, more to herself than to me. And she didn't. But that didn't mean the wound wasn't still healing. By junior year, Columbia's dean invited her to speak at a citywide panel about first-generation college students. She was nervous at first, but then I reminded her, "You gave a speech at graduation that shook a grown man out of his seat. You've got this." She opened her speech with a line that made the crowd lean in. "They said I couldn't afford to be here, so I decided they couldn't afford to stop me." She spoke about her mom, her part-time jobs, her scholarships. She never named Alan, but everyone understood the ghost she was confronting. Afterward, a woman from the New York Times approached her. "Have you ever considered writing your story?" Madison blinked. "My story?" "Your voice is powerful, honest. I think it could help a lot of people." She gave the woman her email, thinking little of it. But by senior year, that chance conversation would come back around in ways none of us expected. Senior year flew by. Between final credits, thesis deadlines, and her work mentoring underserved high school students, Madison barely had time to breathe. But sometime in February, the woman from the New York Times emailed her again. "I never forgot your voice," she wrote. "We're working on a feature, Faces of Grit. I'd love for you to be one of them." Madison hesitated. She didn't want to seem like she was begging for sympathy, and she certainly didn't want her father's betrayal to define her. But when she called me that night, I told her something I'd never said out loud. Hiding what hurt you won't help someone else heal. Your story matters, Maddie. And if someone had written it when I was your age, I might have made fewer mistakes. She went quiet for a long time. Then, okay, I'll do it. The piece came out in April. It was titled, I Paid My Way with Pennies and Pride, One Ivy Student's Story. The article told it all, without bitterness, but with raw truth. She described how her father promised her a college fund, only to spend it on a new life with a new wife. How she'd taken AP courses, worked double shifts, and applied for over 30 scholarships just to build a future no one thought she could afford. She spoke of her mother with reverence, of her old part-time jobs with humility, and of her refusal to let anyone else's choices close her doors. The piece went viral. CNN picked it up. Then Good Morning America. People tweeted things like, "We don't deserve young women like this." Foundations reached out. Columbia's president sent a personal congratulations. The morning after the article dropped, Alan called me. I had no idea she was struggling that much. She wasn't, I said coldly, because she refused to. I didn't mean to hurt her like that. But you did. I want to talk to her. She doesn't need you now. He went silent. Then, what if I want to apologize? You're not owed the chance. I hung up. Madison never mentioned the call. I think she knew it had come. I think she chose, once again, not to give him space in her joy. The article landed her a book agent. A real one. They wanted to build on her story. A memoir about overcoming abandonment, poverty, and systemic odds to graduate with honors from an Ivy. She said she'd think about it after finals. She still had one more moment ahead, and it was going to be bigger than anything we'd seen yet. Madison's graduation ceremony from Columbia University was held in May, under an impossibly clear sky. It was déjà vu from high school, but this time, the stakes were even higher. She had earned summa cum laude honors, completed a senior thesis that her professor called publishable, and won the Dean's Award for Leadership in Service. She'd been offered a fellowship at Oxford, a position at a nonprofit, even a junior editor role at a major New York publishing house. But none of that explained what happened that morning. Because that morning, as Madison walked across the stage in her navy and white robes, something more than achievement followed her. Respect did. Recognition did. Redemption did. They called her name, and she didn't just walk. She commanded the stage. Behind her, the Jumbotron flashed a photo. That photo, the one the New York Times ran with her article. The one where she sat cross-legged on her dorm room floor, scholarship certificates around her like confetti. The one where she smiled like a girl who'd just outrun every barrier ever built to stop her. The crowd, students, parents, strangers, rose to their feet. Some knew her story, others had only heard bits and pieces. But all of them felt it. This wasn't just a graduation. This was a reckoning. Madison took the mic. I stand here today not just as a graduate, but as proof that failure, other people's failure, doesn't have to be the end of your story. When my college fund was denied, I could have quit. When my own father decided I wasn't worth investing in, I could have folded. She paused, looking over the sea of faces. But I didn't. I worked, I fought. I cried more nights than I care to admit. But I kept going, because I knew the only person who had to believe in me was me. The crowd cheered. And to anyone out there who's ever been told they can't afford to dream, let me tell you something. Your future isn't something they get to approve. It's something you get to build. Applause, standing ovation, even the faculty wiped tears. And standing off to the side, half hidden behind a pillar, was Alan. He hadn't told anyone he'd come. He hadn't been invited. He didn't clap. He didn't cry. He just stood there, stone-faced, watching the daughter he once underestimated burn brighter than the future he thought he controlled. When the ceremony ended, Madison walked past him without a glance. She didn't need to say anything. She'd already said everything she needed to on stage. We celebrated later that night with greasy takeout, sparkling cider, and her two roommates. The apartment was filled with flowers from strangers who'd read her article, letters from teenage girls who called her their role model, and even a handwritten note from the Columbia president. She read it aloud. "You've reminded us that the strength of our institution isn't found in the wealth of our students, but in the wealth of their will." I looked at her across the room, now 22, powerful and poised, and so much more than what her father ever imagined she could be. "You made them regret it," I whispered. She smiled. "No," she said. "I made them irrelevant." 6 months later, her memoir, Fuel: How They Tried to Stop Me, was on the New York Times bestseller list. It opened with a dedication to my mother, who never let me confuse silence with weakness, and to those who told me no. Thank you for teaching me how to build my own doors. Have you ever encountered similar incident before? If this story resonates with you, hit the like button and leave your story in the comment section. And of course, subscribe to my channel for more real, raw, and ridiculous stories.